So as we've been introduced, my name is Daniel. This is Orkan. We both work at Bilendi and Respondi. We're here to talk today about AI and how AI interacts with humans. So the reality is that AI is nothing new. Yeah, it's actually like part of many of the processes that every single industry now has, and market research is not really an exception. But what we would like to do today is like to take a step back and to really discuss a little bit about how is this communication, this connection between the machine and the human, especially when we are actually talking about really understanding human behaviors. Here at Bilendi, we've got already I dare to say quite a solid experience in actually working with AI and integrating AI in our own products. For those of you who have actually been part of the presentation that Orkan did this morning at 9:30, you may already know about Barry, but in case that you haven't, Barry is the Bilendi Artificial Intelligence Research Intelligence, yeah? And we've actually integrated Barry so far in 4 different areas. The first one is about wall moderation. So what we've actually tried to do is integrating Barry into our tool called Bilendi Discuss, which is a tool mainly used for qual, but also for quant. When we're actually talking about wall moderation, this is automated wall moderation. So basically what Barry is actually trying to replicate is how a human moderator would be moderating a qualitative study. On top of that, Barry can actually also help us with coding. So automatically is actually going to be creating a code frame, is actually going to be also coding the open answers provided by our respondents. On top of that, we've also integrated Barry within our quantitative kind of research and data collection. This means that what we've actually done is in those open answers that we are actually getting in our online surveys in quant, we have the ability of automatically ask questions, prompt questions to those respondents. And those questions are not pre-scripted. So they are actually, what we are actually doing is basically integrating the AI engine within it. And then also what we are doing is basically getting analysis. And by analysis, I mean mainly executive summaries of those answers provided by all the different respondents. But then again, as I actually spoke about before, what I really would like is to actually take a step back, yeah, and talk a little bit about our relationship, both as a respondent and also as researchers, yeah, with the AI. Some of us, or some of you, may actually think that AI is just like a bunch of algorithms, numbers, a result of maths, yeah, nothing real, nothing human, nothing natural. But then in reality, when we start interacting with the AI as a respondent or as a researcher, we quickly forget that we are actually talking with a machine. And I'm actually going to give you a few examples of that. Beginning with Elisa. You may actually know about Elisa, you may not. Yeah, Elisa was actually one of the first chat boxes ever created. It was actually created in the early 66 by a professor called Weizenbaum at the MIT. So what Elisa was, it was actually a result of Weizenbaum trying to understand the communication between a chat box, a machine, and humans. So what he wanted to understand was whether a human being aware that he was or she was actually chatting with a machine, that interaction would be different than speaking with another human being. He was actually quite surprised, beginning with his own secretary, because he actually saw that the people that they were actually interacting with this Elisa, with this chat box, quickly were forgetting that we're talking to a machine, and they were attributing human feelings, yeah, human attributions to that specific chat box.
And the same phenomenon we observe it every day now in our company. I mentioned it this morning also. We will celebrate Barry's anniversary tomorrow in the company. But so these are, for example, on the research side, some screenshots from the internal chat we have, or also in exchange when we discuss with clients. As you see, For some people, Barry is a he, by the way. For some people, Barry is a she. We don't define it, so it's free to imagination of everybody. And we see here, for example, that someone is saying, yeah, she's anticipating because she does not want to be reprogrammed. Poor Barry, I feel her pain. Below you see like Barry speaking Brazilian Portuguese. They speak about Barry like it was a human, even if they don't know that it's a human. And we see it also on the respondent side. So of course, for the ontological ethical reasons, the participants are always informed when the community is co-moderated by Barry. Most of the time they are human moderators and Barry. And so they know that Barry is an AI. But they still keep this reflex of politeness, for example. When Barry gives a feedback, they react to it like it was a human. They say, thank you. Or in German, gerne it means you're welcome. And we even have like some funny interactions, like this French participant, after the end of a study, was going to his well-deserved holidays and came back to the platform and posted pictures from his holidays and saying, a shame that Barry can't come with me. So, so we see really this phenomenon of I can't spell this word, anthropomorphizing, like to take in like a human being, even if you know that you interact with an AI, that people try somehow, if we are programmed like this, to find some causality, that we infer like some, that the machine has some expectations, etc., and we start to somehow interact with it like with a human.
So we actually talked, in kind of like, in its overall, how people actually react towards AI, towards machines. So in reality, yeah, it's a machine, but a human being is actually treating the machine sometimes, and in many occasions, as another human being. But we wanted to actually bring this kind of idea into the research itself, yeah? We wanted to compare two different metrics, engagement and quality. And we wanted to actually look at those two different, like, let's say, like characteristics, yeah, and attributes, comparing themselves, like comparing it between the quality generated when a human moderator would be actually asking questions in a qualitative research, and when an AI, or Barry, would be asking those questions. So the question was, are we going to get a better quality in case that we are going to be having a human moderator? Are we going to get a better engagement when we are actually going to have like a human moderator? Or is it going to be the opposite? In order to do that, we actually run a study in 3 different countries with 30 participants in each country. We actually had one forum of one online qualitative study, and it was actually about like fashion and sustainability. And in order to do that, as I said, we actually used Barry as an AI engine, but also 3 different moderators native in the local languages, in German, in English, and in French. The first results that we actually got were actually in regards to engagement. Yeah, as you can actually see in the chart behind me, we actually had 939 questions asked as a follow-up. Yeah, so there was actually an open answer, and then we were following up with a question. So there were 939 of those, 753 asked by the AI engine, by Barry, and another 186 asked by the team. What we can actually see is that the amount of questions not answered, yeah, and that's how we are actually measuring engagement, yeah, is actually rather similar. In fact, what we can actually see is that there is like less answers or less questions not answered when the moderator was human. However, as you can see, the difference is not statistically significant. Yeah, so very similar, yeah, maybe actually just like is in the winning side the human moderator, but again, the difference is not significant statistically.
But maybe we go a bit fast, but like what is a good moderator? Like at the end of the day, we don't want to go too much into the detail how to define a good moderator. We will just look at the output. So go on the next slide. So we wanted to evaluate, so a good moderator at the end of the day receives good answers. So his job is to get better answers when he asks follow-up questions. We did a little game to evaluate this. We gave the verbatims, the initial verbatim and the verbatim after the follow-up question to ChatGPT without telling him who was moderating or what was the probe looking like. He just got the first verbatim and the second one from the same participant. And we asked the ChatGPT to rate the second verbatim on a 5-point scale, how much it added value to the quality of the research in terms of insights compared to the first one. So 0 means that the second reply doesn't add any insights, and a 5-point scale is reply was very useful. And here we see that even if the numbers are still pretty close to each other, but I'm not a data guy, but statistically it's still significant that the barrier moderation is, from the quality point of view, even slightly better. We can have another discussion about this why, so this would go beyond this presentation. But we can say at least it's the same level. So we see that the AI succeeds to keep a high engagement, to get similar response rates from participants, but also get good verbatims, which is of course important when you know, if you wish to trust the moderation to an AI. And here, well, also already some research done before in the 80s from researchers who were thinking about AI, like who were segmenting people in 3 different categories. There are people with conservative views who are saying that AI will still be just a tool. So it's a bit of a philosophical question. It was a philosopher. And so, okay, it's a more sophisticated tool, but it's a tool. It means that it will do what I expect to do, and that's how it's supposed to work. The fictionalist people, even if they agree and they completely accept that an AI won't be anything close to a human, but somehow it will be a teammate of sorts. They accept it as an agent. And the evolutionists ones, they are really accepting AI. They are more science fiction. They really accept it as an agent, just not a human one. And for the rest of the presentation, we will not speak about the abolitionist point of view. It's a bit too science fiction. But the thing is, it's important for us as humans to define how we will interact with AI. If you use a hammer, if you master the move, you know what effect it will have. You know, so what the outcome will be. There are predictable effects. And as we see, and we will come to this with an AI, it's a kind of division of labor where we control, where we lose control. We will see it does not exactly produce what we're expecting it to do. It sometimes surprises us. And we will come to the next slide. This is me also. And this is, for example, there was a scientific, like English is the new programming language. And so here the arguments for pro or against, is AI just a tool? And we already see that you need to master prompt engineering. It's not just because you can speak English that the AI understands what you wish. So it's another kind of programming at the end. It's the view that it's a tool. It's just that instead of just speaking to it or just scripting it, you have the art of prompt engineering, which is somehow another way of programmation. And here we see, so it is not like a hammer, because in the daily life, I mean, those who have played around with ChatGPT, you see sometimes the outcomes are not those you are expecting. Sometimes you laugh because it fails at the really easy tasks, and sometimes it answers way better than you expect. So that you don't know really in advance concretely the outcome you will get of it. So somehow you lose the control. And these are some examples, for example, that we see in the daily life. There's a bad example where Barry failed. Les tours sur le cerf, and there was a spelling mistake. There was an autocorrect who led to a spelling, started with a spelling mistake. Les tours sur le cerf means the rates are falling, while the participant wanted to say the news is tightening. In this context, it was about a political research. So Barry doesn't really understand it. He shows some surprise, but at the end of the day, he just go on because he was prepared to probe anyway. And he asked, oh, what makes the change rate so captivating, even if it was a completely nonsense? The rates had nothing to do with it. This is a case of where you really see those, yeah, AI doesn't work, it does rookie mistakes. And then we have the empathy was a thing. So ChatGPT is mimicking pretty well empathy. But when you have to program, it's a bit difficult at which level of empathy you should go. Even as a human moderator, sometimes you struggle how to manage some situation. And here we had the case where we find that Barry managed it surprisingly good. It was about Stu 99 speaking about a Gucci watch that she bought and with money from her late mother. So it starts really being a bit personal. And Barry, without going too much into, it's so sad, etc. So it shows some empathy by stating the sentimental value, but tries to keep going on with this research. And after the probe, reminds me of my late mother. And here you say Barry stops without going too much about showing a certain level of empathy from an honest point of view. So for this kind of situation, for an AI, it managed pretty good the situation. And these are one of the cases where we have sometimes good surprises. And so, as we see, this is the difference, when we start a project and we will let Barry moderate with 20, 50, 100 people, we don't know exactly what will happen. It's not like a hammer that we know what will be done. So, and that's why we could consider it as a teammate of sorts. It's like a teammate. When you work with a teammate, you somehow trust you know that sometimes it will be different than you. You will do some mistakes. Sometimes it will be better. And from this point of view, it's more, we consider it more like as a teammate because we don't have 100% control over what will be the outcome. But this is not something so we accept that we lose control. It's more than crunching numbers, but this is why we should also, this is also the benefit of it. We can do now with this kind of AI stuff we were not able to do before.
And as I mentioned before, one of the main applications of Barry is actually providing executive summaries. So as you can imagine, what we've actually done with our tool Bilendi discuss is in many occasions provide a hybrid solution between quantitative and qualitative. So while we are actually going to have 20 or 30 participants, which would be the number of participants that we would usually have in a qualitative study, we are actually going to have multiple answers because, we are actually going to have like question and follow-up question and multiple moderation. So we're going to try to do as I mentioned before, like a deep dive. And because we are going to have quite a lot of data, what we want is to actually speed up the process by creating those executive summaries. Yeah. So what Barry is actually going to help us with is to actually create those executive summaries in about 2 to 3 minutes in average. What the first thing that we are going to see, and AI help us with, is getting one executive summary like that, marking in bold the key ideas of that executive summary. But we all know that one of the main handicaps and limitations of AI is the so-called hallucinations. Yeah. So in order to actually look into whether that summary that we are getting is actually really factual and based on real answers, what we really want to get is, first of all, let's say, more detailed summary, and that detailed summary is going to be based in Barry giving us some key ideas, yeah, and is actually going to be connecting it with the verbatims that is actually justifying that specific idea. Yeah, so in average, we are going to get 3, 4, 5 ideas for each and every kind of summary that we actually get.
And when it's probing, here's a case where, so the context of the study was, again, the shopping and the environmental concerns. And as you see, it's a nice verbatim already. But the AI does way more than just say, yeah, please develop more. You will see in the, Nick is speaking about fashion designers, and to the end it says, Vivienne Westwood, Stella McCartney, these designers take inspiration from nature. So it doesn't speak really about environment, but this is again a situation where we were really happy with Barry, how he or she managed it. Barry remembers that the topic of the research is to understand also the environmental concerns, and go on the next slide. And it's picking this up a pretty elegant way. It's fascinating to hear about the emphasis on nature-inspired designs and the role of high-end designers. Can you elaborate how these nature-inspired designs cater the current ecological demands in fashion industry? So you know that really out of the big verbatim, it took the right thing, who was not exactly speaking about ecological concerns, but like a good human moderator, it picked up the right way to bring the participants to bring in from nature, inspiration from nature to ecological demands. And so it works. Nikki is developing it pretty well and developing more ideas about how these designers could put more pressure on manufacturers, etc.
I think it's also worth mentioning that because we are actually using mobile in that specific study, we are actually allowing respondents to record an audio, sometimes a video. And because of that, it's not the same as asking them to actually just type their answer. You'd be surprised, yeah, because there are certain cultures that they really like to talk. I'm from Spain, so I know what I'm talking about. So the reality is that we've actually run projects in Southern Europe and in Latin America, and people are actually recording themselves and actually giving us pure essays. It's extremely long answers. So what we would be expecting is a moderator to go through an open end of about 500 words and having to go back automatically in less than a minute with a good follow-up question, that would literally be technically impossible, right? So in order to actually adapt to new technologies and new ways to collect data, AI is actually extremely helpful in that regard. And the reality is that we have to actually have two things in mind. First of all, AI is still new, yeah, generally. So we started speaking about AI 4 or 5 years ago. And as researchers, we need to keep building trust on the technology. How we need to do that? Well, very simply, we need to actually understand better how AI works, yeah? We also need to understand that we, as Olga mentioned before, it's impossible to have full control on AI, in the same way that we cannot have full control on how one of our colleagues is actually going to do part of the work that we are going to be asking them to do. But then also, in the same way that AI is not great for everything, it may be better than a human being in certain areas. So it's also about finding where AI can actually be more helpful than a human being. So I was actually talking about building trust, yeah? But how can we actually do that? First of all, we need to actually ask our AI technology to justify, yeah? We really need to, we actually work in market research, we actually need facts, we actually need to actually understand that that information that the AI is giving me is actually based on real answers. Yeah, so a very good example of that was when I actually showed those ideas connected to the specific verbatims that were actually just justifying that specific idea. On the other hand, we need to double check. And by double check, I mean that we really need to script and program specific programs just in order to double check what the AI is engine, like what the AI engine is actually doing. By that, what I mean is that it's extremely important that in the same way that AI works, like in a quite an automated way, we need to actually script our own programs in order to double check that what the AI is actually doing is actually correct. And by GoFi, which is actually the
good old-fashioned AI.
So it's actually connected to what I actually mentioned in regards to double check. Yeah. So it's about like, implementing the old AI where it was like pretty much like pre-scripted in order to actually check, that, what the AI is doing is correct. So we were also talking before about using the AI in what we think it could potentially be better than a human being. What is that? First of all, a human can actually work for a limited number of hours. Yeah, when we actually run qualitative studies and quantitative too, we are actually in many occasions running them globally. Yeah, we really need to actually have like people who can actually work on a 24/7 basis. Yeah, and to actually just like answer ideally right away. Yeah, in the moment, we're gonna say. So the AI can actually provide an unlimited capacity of work. Yeah, and this is definitely something that we have to bear in mind for specific studies where that can definitely be advantageous. As I mentioned before, it's 24/7 available, meaning we are not really looking at shifts, we are not really looking at weekends or days off, so we've got like a technology that works 24/7. All of us, we are actually having a certain degree of energy. Yeah, we start with high energy at 9 or 10 a.m. and then at 5 p.m. we just need to rest, right? Again, technology is actually always working at the same level and at the same level of energy. And we've actually talked about empathic interactions, and you may actually argue, well, Dani, it's like a human is always going to be more empathetic than a machine. You're right, but a machine is always going to be better than a tired human. And this is actually something that we also need to bear in mind, because if we are going to be looking at efficiency and like all at scale, that's definitely something that we need to actually bear in mind. Anything you'd like to add, Orkan?
Yeah, just to sum up, so as you understood, so our position in this paper was about the workflow, because we are confronted, and we see a lot of clients or colleagues who try to understand why the AI did what. Instead of trusting it, first of all, they are looking for reasoning that sometimes, and causality that sometimes still does not exist. It's because we are humanizing it. But it's really, we should define the right rules for AI where it works, and it does the job. So, and then somehow trust it. Of course, implement all the checks, so the security checks, anti-hallucination, but also, as Dani explained, the justification how it came to this. But from that point on, so this is our point. Our take, we consider it as a teammate, and because it's an additional resource which is enabling human to focus, the researchers to focus on the real research, on the real human intelligence thing, while, for example, chasing participants to just say more. It's not the real added value of a human. It's necessary to do it, but just running after a bunch of participants, it's not the real researcher's added value. So that the researcher can focus more on consult the client, conceive the next questions, interpret, and if we consider AI like this, it will really increase the quality and the productivity of the research.
Thank you very much.